Lately I've been thinking about this life and how it brought me here. Staring at this man in the mirror, I see him often here. Wipe my tears, only if you knew what I was going through. Only if you walked it in my shoes. Certain things don't like to talk about, but I'll always remember. The chaos in my mind turned my heart out in November. I'm surrounded by too many doors.
Welcome to the Message Hope podcast, where the hope stands for hearing other people's experience. My name is Adam.
My name is Mike, and today on the show we have Nate's other half, Jessica. She was in her addiction for 9 years. She's got a little over 2, and she's here to share her story with us. Welcome, Jessica.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
So, let's start it out. Where'd you grow up? What was that like for you?
So I grew up in South El Monte. We lived with my grandparents and my mom. My mom was a single mom until she met my stepdad, who became my dad. So I call him dad today. My biological dad was in and out of the picture for years. So there was always a little bit of resentment there. Mm-hmm. But I mostly just grew up with my grandparents being around because my mom was always working. So it was mostly my grandparents.
I can really relate with that, with the resentment towards my dad too. And it was only my mom usually. If you don't mind me asking, why was he an addict?
Yes, my dad was very much in his addiction my entire life. So I don't have many memories of him growing up, but I remember like my mom barricading us in the bedroom and like him banging on the door, or me growing up and him banging on my grandparents' front door saying, "Let me see my effing kids," like I remember bits and pieces about that, but I don't have the greatest memories of him growing up.
Okay, so it was only mom. Mm-hmm. You have any siblings?
I do. I have 2 younger brothers now. So growing up, I only had my younger brother, and my younger brother started to smoke weed. Because of my dad's addiction, I was that kid that did not touch drugs, period. I was a softball player. I was a pretty good kid. I even dabbled in dance. I was always involved in something. But my brother started to dabble in smoking weed. And then he was like, "Oh, I'm just selling it." And I remember feeling like this ugly feeling like, "Oh, I hate this. Like, I'm never going to touch drugs. Like, I hate drugs. I'm never going to smoke weed." Like, I just veered far from it. And none of my friends ever did it. So, yeah, that's, he was the typical, he looks like a total white boy. So he was the typical skateboarding white boy smoking weed, kind of kid. Yeah.
And so your mom always had you in something like school and activities was like really important?
And she would tell me I was always more on you, and I was more strict with you because I felt like you were the one that would go down the wrong path. So she focused more on me and less on my brother, because I was always like, "Why do you let him do everything? And like I can't do anything." And she was like, "Because you were the one that I was mostly worried about when I should have just been focused on both of you." Yeah. And I had that resentment growing up because my mom made me act like a junior mom to my brother. Make sure you're with your brother. Make sure you do this. Make sure you tell. And I'm like, "You're never around, and you're just making me like mother my brother." So those resentments started really young.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so your brother, you said you had a younger brother, like another younger brother?
So when my biological dad got a little more stable, I think he was good for like 10 years. And in those 10 years, he met my stepmom, who I still talk to today. I love her. She got pregnant with my youngest brother. So I do have a half brother. And I'm very close with my brothers, both of them. So I do see them all the time. And my youngest brother's so smart. I mean, both of my brothers are smart, but my youngest brother is like out of this world smart. Like, he reads the dictionary. Like, who does that, So I'm really proud of him.
That's awesome. How old is he now?
He is 25 now.
25.
Yeah.
Okay. So what was it like for you, like later in school years, like in junior high and high school? You were still actively involved with everything, or?
Yeah. So, Junior high, I think, is when I didn't get a lot of attention growing up. I was always kind of bullied and people were mean to me. You know, my mom didn't let me shave my legs or pluck my eyebrows or whatever. So
Yeah.
kids were always calling me like Chewbacca. You know, kids are fucking mean.
Yeah.
So,
Chewbacca, that's
yeah.
funny.
So I remember I shaved my legs without my mom knowing. And we had gone somewhere and she was like, Jessica has Harry. Did you shave your legs? And she didn't let me shave my legs until like, I was almost in high school and I was pissed because I'm like, no mother cares, you know, if you do that shit. So the resentments just kept building and building and building, right? So I was like, the good kids started to turn, you know, because I was like, okay, I'm going to rebel because you're so on me about any little thing and I don't give you a reason to be. So now I'm going to give you a reason to be, you know? And then in junior high is I think it was the first time I ever got my eyebrows done and I started wearing makeup to school. And it's the first time that I actually started getting attention from guys. And I was like, okay, I like this feeling. Like I'm finally getting, you know, recognized or whatever. And just kind of snowballed from there, man. Like high school was just like a sex fiesta. Like, you know, people were doing it left and right. And I still hadn't lost my virginity. So I was like, I would talk about it like I did, but I was like, yeah, like we were in the back and they were like, where? And people would call me on my shit and I would be like, okay, well, no, it didn't happen. But when I was freshman going into sophomore year, because I had good friends, you know, I was playing softball and there was this guy who I had a crush on for years. And he was like, you know, he would smoke weed and I'd be like, I hate that shit, whatever. But he was one of those bad boys. So he had a girlfriend at the time and I was still like, I don't care. He's giving me attention. He's one of the most popular guys in the school, so I don't care. He ended up taking me to the back. So my high school where I grew up was South Amani High School. So it was attached to Lake Park. And in that park, everybody would go. So behind the school, you could walk this little bridge to go to that park. And in that park, there was like always these secret, you know, the stalls and the bathrooms and stuff. We went there and he basically was just like, let's do it. Like peer pressured me into, you know, doing it with him. So that was my first time. And I was just, you know, I've heard some girls talk about it, like romanticizing their first times. And I was just like, mine was in the freaking stall at a park. Like, you know, it wasn't romantic at all. And I remained friends with him. And after that, he was just kind of like, I remember feeling like crap, right? And he was like, oh, but we're still going to be friends. We're homies for life. Like, he would just want me around whenever he just wanted to hook up. He wasn't interested in being with me. He wasn't interested in being my boyfriend, like nothing. So that made me feel worthless. And, you know, growing up, my mom would get on me so much about, well, you can do this better. You can do this. Why are you leaning towards? She never made me feel good enough. Nothing that I did growing up ever made me feel good enough. Yep. Like the same with my dad. I had so much resentment with him because I was like, was I not, as his first kid, like I wasn't enough for him to stay clean and stick around, you know? So this mindset of me being unlovable was real to me, you know? It was deep. It was, I'm not good enough. I'm unlovable. I'm never going to be good enough. So my sophomore year, I had met this guy. And he lived actually right up the street from my grandparents' house. And everybody was like, how are you involved with him? Like, he doesn't really date girls, you know? And I was like, well, I don't know. Like, he became the love of my life. Like, when I tell you that I was devastated when we broke up, like, it was like not eating, like crushed to my soul, like devastation. So
teenage heartbreak.
Yes, very much so. Yeah. And so when we got together, I ended up pregnant with him. And I was like 16. And my mom kept asking me, and she's like, are you pregnant? I'm like, no, like you have to have sex to be pregnant. And like I was, but I didn't want to tell her that, you know? So she was like, no, I think you are. And she ended up finding out, she knew. And she told me, if you keep the baby, you're not going to live here. So you decide what you want to do. But if you're going to have a kid, you're going to go with him and you're going to raise it on your own. You don't have our support. And I was like, what am I going to do? Like, I'm 16. I guess I can't have the baby. And he was kind of like, leaning more towards, not having the baby too. So I was like stuck in the middle, even though I felt like that was going to fix me. I'm going to have this little thing that's going to love me. So I went through with it. I didn't have the baby. And this was right before Christmas. So I went through with not having the baby. And then the day after Christmas, he broke up with me and he left me. So that, another fear of abandonment, right? I'm abandoned again by the love of my life, like heartbroken, feeling like a worthless piece of crap. And then my ex-husband came into play. And I met him in high school. And it was my senior year. So I got involved with him. And at this point, I was already at continuation school because I was in and out of the hospital because I had all these health problems. And they were like, you have to go get your credits up. So you have to go to continuation school. So I went, and meeting him there should have been a red flag already, but I was like, whatever, like, I'm going to be with him. So we ended up getting together. He lived in East LA, and he drove a car. So I was like, oh, he's fucking balling, like he drives a car in high school. Like, who drives a car in high school, I thought I was all cool riding around with him. And right after I graduated my senior year, I got pregnant with him, right? And so I go to the doctor and they confirm the pregnancy. And he's like, whatever you want to do, let me know. Like, I can get 2 jobs if you want. Like, we'll be in this together. And I was like, dang, like, he's the love of my life. Like, I thought that was, but like, I'm going to ride with this guy until the end, like, this is what true love is. Shortly after that, so I didn't go through with that pregnancy either. Shortly after that, he started to show me his true colors, right? Like, he was very verbally abusive, always knocking me down. Like, I would wear something cute for him and he'd be like, damn, you walked out in that? Like, what? Do you want attention? Like, always making me feel like crap. And I'm like, here I'm thinking like, oh, I'm looking cute for you. When in reality, in his mind, he's like, oh, you're doing it for attention, So that turned into 14 years, right? So I stayed with him all throughout college. He would pick me up. I'd go to college, and I was on my way to getting my degree, and he would pick me up from college and be like, okay, well, let's go back to my house. So I would go to class and then not go to class, be with him, whatever. And then I started getting into dance in college. I went to Rio Hondo College in Whittier. And I really started to get into dance because dancing was my passion growing up. So I was like, I'm going to keep doing this. And again, he was like, that's not a career. Like, what are you doing? Why are you doing that? Like, who makes dance their career? Now I kick myself in the ass because I'm like, had I stuck to it, I could have done something with it, But yeah, I was dealing with him. So the more I got to be around him and his family, the more I started to see more red flags, but he would do little things here and there that made me feel like, oh, he loves me. Like, for Valentine's Day, he left a stream, what's the word I'm looking for?
A trail?
A trail. He left a trail of rose petals leading to his room, and he had like made me cookies and bought me a bear, and I didn't have that, so I was like, oh, he loves me so much. And his family's very loud and out there. His mom would drink and like talk crap to his dad, and I was like, okay, like, I guess this is my new normal, I have to adapt to it. My mom met him and she was like, no, you're not going to see him. He's not good for you. And I was like, Mom, you don't know what you're talking about, like, whatever. And had I listened then, I probably wouldn't be in this position. But I was like, okay, whatever. You're going to say what you want to say. So I stuck it out with him. And the deeper I got, the more I was like, I can't get out, So after being with him for 10 years, it was 10 years, his family started growing, like, they were used to me, like they were comfortable with me. So I had not only him saying certain things, but I had his brother, I had his sister, I had his mom. And his mom is very demeaning. Like, she will talk to you like you're dumb, when in reality it's like, I'm a lot smarter than you, but I think that was her way of like making herself feel better. Like, I'm going to talk down to you because I'm going to feel better about myself. So she was kind of mean. She would drink and his whole family would get drunk, right? Like they would all, it was party after party after party every weekend. So I started to become like really overwhelmed, and I'm like, I'm here on the weekend, so I have to, do something to make myself feel better. One night I had a really bad headache, and I was like, man, it was like the third day of them having just party after party drinking. And I was like, I don't want to deal with this, And one of his sister-in-law at the time, she was like, oh, I have some medicine. She's like, if you want it, go ahead and take it. She's like, they gave it to me after I had my baby, but I'm never going to use it. It was Norco. So I was like, let me take one. And I had taken one, and I remember I felt so good after I took it. I was like, dang, like I'm in a good mood. I can tolerate his family. Like I can tolerate him, So I didn't know what that feeling was because, like I said, I never touched drugs and alcohol. Like it wasn't my thing. But this one little pill, I was like, this makes me relax. So I'm going to have to keep taking it, right? So it went it was like sporadic. Like I didn't continuously keep taking it, but I found myself taking it every time like there was a party or something. Like I was like, I have to take it to like deal with what's going to come, So that was my thing. And then I kind of stopped for a while. Obviously, the pills were gone, and I had stopped for a little bit. And then I had a slip and fall incident on my back, and I ended up getting a herniated disc. And, back then the doctors were quick to give you any kind of narcotics. So they had given me oxys, and I was like, dang, this one's even better than Norco, So I kept trying to find myself like going back, trying to get any little pill that I could, because I was like, this is amazing. Like I can tolerate my husband, By this time we were already married. And something in the back of my mind too was like, I should not be getting married. Like even the day before I got married, I broke out in hives. Like my body was trying to tell me like, you cannot get married, but I still went through with it. And, so we get married, and then fast forward a couple years later, and he's like, so I'm getting us a house. And he was very, machista type of Mexican guy. And he was like, either you're going to follow me or you're not. You're my wife, so you need to stand behind me. I'm going to get us a house. I never saw this house. I didn't know where it was at. He was like, you're going to follow me because that's what women do, right? And I was like, okay. So it ended up being out here in San Bernardino. And luckily, I loved the house, right? But so my grandparents were in Almani. My parents were in Rancho. So my mom and dad weren't too far away, but I felt isolated. Out here, I really had nobody because I grew up over there. And so then I started to get that feeling of like, damn, I really need to get my hands on these pills again to like deal with him because I'm out here by myself with him, And then I got pregnant with my daughter. And so I got pregnant with my daughter. We moved out here to SB. And he was at work all the time because he would work nights. So, after I had my daughter, about 6 months in, they were like, you need to be put on bed rest because they had told me that I was never going to be able to get pregnant. So they were like, you're never going to have kids. So when it happened and they were like, you need to get put on bed rest, I was like, I'm going to do anything I can to have this baby, especially given my past. Like I felt like when they had told me I wasn't going to be able to have kids, I was like, I did this to myself. Like God's punishing me because I didn't have those other kids, Yeah. So I was like, I'm going to do whatever I can to keep this baby. So I was dealing with him he was worse than ever at this point. Like I was pregnant with my daughter, and he was like, you need to do what you need to do, like to stay safe for my daughter and like whatever. And I was like, okay. So I was there by myself a lot. And I think like 7 months into my pregnancy, the doctor was like, you can take some Oxy for your back, because I had sciatica really bad. And I was like, okay, like, is it safe with me being pregnant? And she was like, yeah, it's totally fine. Take it as needed. There goes the feeling again, right? I'm pregnant, and I'm like, I can deal with it. I don't have pain. I don't have to deal with my ex-husband. After I had my daughter, it was 2020 when the pandemic hit. So he's not at work. So now I'm having to deal with his ass full time, right? I'm at home with my baby. I had lost my job. They let me go. So it's around the clock, postpartum, dealing with the new house, dealing with my ex-husband. And it was just, I was losing my mind. Like I felt myself spiraling into a really big depression. And all I could think about was, so the doctor had me on Xanax. The doctor had me on every antidepressant you can think of. She had me on the oxys because of my back, and then she went back to Norcos because they were it was less of a dose. So I'm on this cocktail of drugs, right? And he would tell me all the time, "You're just a druggie," and I was like, "No, I'm not. Like, these are prescribed. Like, what are you talking about?" And when the doctor took all of that away, I was like, "Okay, wait, hold up. Like, you can't make me feel good and tolerate my husband, and then tell me that you're gonna take away all this stuff, right?" So I found myself like searching on the internet. There was this one girl who had asked months ago, does anybody know where I can get Norco for my husband because he slipped and fell, whatever, and the doctor's not giving him anymore. I don't know why my mind remembered that, right? So I reach out to her and I'm like, "Hey, did you ever get a hold of somebody that sells Norcos, you know?" And she was like, "Yeah." She was like, "Call this number." And I was like, "All right, bet." So I called the number. Yeah, all sketch, right? But I was like, fuck it.
Call this number.
Yeah. She was like, "Call this number, say I referred you." I was like, "All right, cool."
A referring fucking.
Yeah, she was. She was
benefit.
referring to Connect.
That's fucking funny.
So I was like, all right. So I called the number and I'm like, "Hey, I need, so-and-so, whatever, for how much?" And he was like, "Okay, I'm going to record you and I need you to say that you're not with law enforcement." And I was like, "Okay." And I was like, "I'm not with, dude, bro, I just want fucking Norcos. Like, what do you want me to say?" And he was like, "All right, I'll meet you for $10 a pill. $10 a pill." I didn't know how much pills were, like I didn't know that you can get them for fucking $5. So I'm over here scrambling to try to get $1,000, to get 10 pills. So I was like, all right, cool. And so I meet up with the guy. So I'm living in SB, right? He's like, "I'm in Moreno Valley." And I was like, all right, cool. So I'm driving down this freeway and I'm passing all along because I lived up Waterman. So I went all up this freeway to come to Mova. I think I had to take like 3 freeways. And so coming up here was like, it was really triggering, So I go and I pick it up and then I stop at the Target right here in SB. And I remember taking them and I was like, there's that feeling like, okay, I'm back on my shit. Like I can go home and get shit done, right? Because this kind of feeling, when you would take Oxy or Norco, like you get really tired because it's meant to, make you feel drowsy and help you go to sleep because it kills the pain. But when you get through that initial tiredness, like you're like, oh, I can fucking do anything,
Yeah.
So
I used to wake up and I'd have to have a Red Bull. And I would take 3. So the Red Bull would like counteract that little drowsy part in the beginning. And then it was all energy for me. I could do anything.
Yeah, so like it. Yeah. I was like Superwoman, like I got everything done. And my ex-husband would tell me like, "Well, I'm paying the bills here, right? So you need to do everything in the house. Like you're the woman. You need to give me this. You need to make me feel this way. You need to pick up after us. You need to take care of the baby. You need to." And I'm like, "You're not even working right now." He's like, "But I'm still paying the bills. So you need to do everything." And when I had my daughter, that was the first time he ever got physical with me. So I remember like trying to breastfeed. I'm this new mom, like trying to figure it out. And he had pinned me up against the wall and he was like, "You're fucking starving my daughter, bitch." And I was like, that was the first time I got scared, So I was like, so those pills, like when I say that they helped me from like probably offing myself, like they really helped me, And that's not to condone any of it because obviously that's not the way out, but. So I ended up getting them, and I would find myself like getting any money that I could scramble up to try to get more of these little magic pills. And then one day he asks me, "Hey, do you like oxycodone better than Norco?" And I was like, "Yeah, actually I do." And he was like, "I'm going to get some." He's like, "So I'll sell them to you and you let me know how you like them." And I was like, "I've taken them before. Like I know I like them." So I went to go buy some and I kept buying them from there, right? So fast forward a year, so I find out that I'm pregnant with okay, let me go back. So while I'm using this whole time, I was like, all right, I'm good. I just need these little pills to like make me clean up the house and tolerate my ex and, deal with life. Then things between him and I got so bad to the point that my daughter would start like screaming, right? And I was like, this is affecting my daughter. How am I going to raise her knowing that this guy is the way that he is with me? Like, what kind of example am I setting for her? So I checked out of the relationship completely. I was like, I'm no longer doing anything for you. I don't want to touch you. Like, totally checked out, right? And I started seeking that validation from male attention elsewhere. So, you know, I started chatting with all my old friends, old guys, whatever. And he ended up finding it on my phone, was livid. And he was like, was the baby even mine? And I was like, how could you ask that? Like, I've never stepped out on you. Yes, I seeked validation, but I never stepped out on you. You know, I don't believe in cheating. So whatever, that went awry. And he was like, I want a divorce. I'm selling the house. I was like, all right, like, cool. I get to move on with my life, you know? I'm only human. So right after we split and I move out, I find out I'm pregnant with my son. And I'm scared shitless because I'm like, what am I going to do? Again, he doesn't think it's his. He's like, well, I don't know if this is my baby. You know, you're hoeing around or whatever. And I was like, you're a dick because I know for sure that it's yours, right? So he gets a paternity test. These are obviously his kids. And while I'm living at my mom's, I'm pregnant. I'm still meeting with my Connect over here in Moreno Valley. And I use that as an excuse, right? I lost my house. I don't have my husband. I'm going to be a single mom of 2 kids. Like, how am I going to deal with life? Like, you know, you try to justify your behaviors all the time. Yeah. So I was like, I need this to keep myself afloat. Like, now I'm dealing with my mom again, who I didn't have a great relationship with growing up, you know. All these things were going through my mind. So once my son was born, their dad started to come around to try and help out. And he was like, well, my brother and his wife just bought a house in Moreno Valley. And I was like, oh, hell yeah. Like, for me, I was like, score, I can go over there and, like, you know, get my fix and then come back, you know, whatever. So he was like, let's go see the house. When I walked into that house, I think the baby had been born a few months prior. When I walked into their house, everything that was in my house was decorated in their new house. So it triggered the fuck out of me. I can't even explain the feeling that I had when I walked in and I saw all of my stuff that was from my house on their walls, you know? So I had anxiety. So again, the doctor, now having my son, put me back on Xanax and all these things, right? Like, you have postpartum, you need to, whatever. So again, I'm on a cocktail. And I'm still getting, this is when he had asked me, like, oh, how do you like oxys? And I was like, I'm good with oxys. So he sold me the oxys, right? And I'm taking it. So I get there to my ex-brother-in-law's house and I take a couple oxys. And then I take a couple Xanax, and I'm like, I still feel anxiety. I take a couple more, and I'm gone, right? Like, my ex-husband said, the next thing I remember was, like, waking up in an ambulance. And I'm like, what is going on, you know? And I get to the hospital, and that's still a blur, right? And she was like, the nurse comes in, and she's like, babe, you have 2 heart attacks. Like, are you okay? Was this on purpose? Were you? And I was like, what? I'm like, I don't even remember, like, anything, like, what happened? And she, like, kind of went through it with me, and she was like, well, your husband said that he found you and that you were purple, you were unconscious, and they couldn't wake you up, so they had to spray Narcan to, like, revive you. So that's what saved my life. And I was like, I have no recollection of this. Like, so little did I know that the oxy that I was taking was fentanyl.
Yeah.
And unbeknownst to me, I was like, well, this is making me feel, you know, great. So, but I did think it was weird that it was giving me such like it would make me nauseous. You know, I couldn't do too much. It would make me way more tired. Like, I was nodding off, you know, like it was a lot worse than just taking regular oxy or Norco. So, yeah, I had 2 heart attacks. They were like, are you in danger? Did you do this on purpose? And I was like, I didn't try to kill myself. Like, I you know, what are you guys saying? Like, what's going on? And, yeah, they let me go under his care. And he was like, yeah, I'm going to take care of her. Can she breastfeed? Like, the nurse is, like, listening to all these things. I always say that this nurse was an angel in disguise, because she was like, I know you didn't do this on purpose, and I know you have a lot on your plate, because I just started word vomiting on her, right? Everything. I'm dealing with my mom, dealing with my ex-husband. I'm a new mom of 2, like a single mother. And she really said things that made me feel better. Even wrote down her phone number on a card. And she was like, if you ever just need somebody to talk to, you can reach out to me. And I was like, man, this is the first person that makes me feel heard and seen, you know? I was like, nobody else has made me feel that way. So I remember feeling a little hopeful when I left there. And again, I go back to hearing his BS and whatever. So that year, think that was in 2021. So, no, that was in 22. So 2022, the beginning of 2022, right? I'm still, the only thing that I could think about when I got out of the hospital was I need to go get more pills because I'm going to deal with this shit again, right? So my mind was just like, I need to get back to my car. I need to go get pills and I need to go home and deal with the wreckage of what I just went through, right? Because everybody's going to be asking me questions. So I was like, I need to be medicated for me to be able to go through this. Of course, right? Where does my mind go? Right back to the same bullshit that you just went through. So, I get more, and I'm not aware still at this point of what I'm taking. And then that year progressively got worse. So 2022 was when I really started to the depression was real, man. Like I was like, I don't want to live like this. I was tired. I was run down. I was broken down. I was a single mom of 2. You know, my mom helped the best way that she thought she could. But, you know, she was always like, I raised my kids. My kids are grown. Like, that's your responsibility. So, you know, I always felt alone. Like, I felt like I had nobody. I'm dealing with a newborn. I'm dealing with a toddler. Like, I have nobody. And my marriage fell apart. I just felt like a failure. I felt done. I felt defeated, you know? So, towards the end of 2022, I remember just like wanting to end all of it, you know? And, my brother, who had been clean for 4 years at this point, saw the signs and he was like, Jessica, you need help. And I was like, no, I don't. No, I don't need help. Like, I can stop whenever the hell I want. I just don't want to because this is how I deal with things, you know? Typical addict behavior. Sure. Yeah. So I was like, no. And he was like, so he starts recording me. He was like, I'm going to test you. And I was like, test me once. Test me 5 times. Like, I know that I'm good, you know, whatever. So, yeah, what started off as me getting prescriptions obviously turned into a full-blown addiction. So right after that, I ended up, I remember I had this huge like knife and I was like, I'm done. And my brother recorded the whole thing and, played it back to me after I got treatment. Right. And I remember feeling like, damn, I'm a piece of shit, you know, like I don't deserve to be here. I don't deserve my kids, you know? So that was the first time that I ever felt like once he played it back for me, I was like, I guess I do need to get help. So right when I started to feel that way, my ex-husband takes my kids from me, puts a restraining order on me. He's like, you're not going to see the kids until you get the help that you need. He was always the one that kind of saw that I had a problem though. So in hindsight, like, I'm glad that he did what he did. Because he was always like, you're taking too many prescription drugs. And I was like, you're dumb. Like, these are prescribed, you know, like there's a difference between taking prescribed medication and abusing it, you know? So I was like, you don't even know what you're talking about. These are all prescribed, whatever. And so when he took my kids from me, I was like, I have nothing else left to live for. So I'm done. And my mom was like, I'm going to send you to this treatment center and you're going to go. And I was like, fine. So I go to this treatment center and I start listening to like people's stories talking about how they lived under a bridge or they were pushing a shopping cart. And I was like, that was not me. Like, I do not have a problem. Yeah. Like, I don't even know why you brought me here. I don't know, you know, what the purpose of this whole shit was. And then I met this guy at the treatment center. He was like playing like a ukulele in the back. And I was like, oh, he's good looking, you know, like I'm going to talk to him. Again, my effed up mind just goes back to like trying to find some kind of validation with the opposite sex, right? So I start talking to him and he was like, he wrote me this letter, right? And he was like, oh, hit me up anytime when you're out, whatever. And I was like, okay. So I get out and then I don't know how I ended up at a meeting in Pomona. I don't even know if my parents found it. I don't know if I found it online, whatever the case, but I ended up at a meeting there, right? And there's this lady who's sharing and she's talking about how she would pop pills like Tic Tacs. And I was like, oh shit, like she knows my story, right? And the more that I started hearing things, the more I was like, oh fuck, like maybe I did have a problem because I felt like I didn't want to stop, but maybe I couldn't stop, you know? And then Mary Helen, my beloved Mary Helen, who unfortunately has passed, but she was in the rooms and I remember she would get on me when I would come in, and she was super intimidating. Like, you know, she looked like this old bike riding, like G woman that could fuck you up just with the look in her eyes. You know, I was like, she's like, have you gotten a sponsor? Have you started? And I was like, no. And she was like, well, you need to get on it. You don't do this alone. Like, you need to. She was just very intimidating. So I was like, well, fuck, I guess I have to do whatever she tells me to do, you know? So I took her advice. And I saw how much people flocked to her, you know? So I was like, well, this lady has to have some knowledge of, you know, something, because so many people love her. And I remember at first I would start to call her Mary Ellen, because I didn't know her name was Mary Helen. And she was like, Mary Helen. And she corrected me like in such a, like, you better get that shit right. That I was like, oh fuck, like I almost peed myself when she said that, because I was like, dang, she don't fuck around. So yeah, after that, I remember growing close to her. I think I had like 30 days probably, right, where I still hadn't seen my kids. Like, I would have phone visits, but I wouldn't see them in person. So I hit up this guy that I had seen in the treatment center, and he's like, yeah, I go to meetings here and there, you know, whatever. And he's like, we should hang out. I'm like, all right. He's like, pick me up at this, I don't have a car, so pick me up at the Planet Fitness right here. It was by IBRS, and I was going to meetings at IBRS. And I was like, all right. So I pick him up at the Planet Fitness, and he comes out, and he's like kind of damp, like his clothes and stuff, right? And he was like, sorry, I had to take a shower. And I was like, take a shower at the gym? And I was like, all right, whatever. So we get in my car, and he starts like, oh, do you have any cash? And he was like, we should get something to eat. And I was like, this fool, like, you should be paying for my meal, you know? So I was like, what is he doing? And I wasn't used to it. So he's like, you can drop me off. You can drop me off behind the Walmart. And I was like, the Walmart? And I was like, what are you going to do there? And he was like, I'm going to wait for the bus. And I was like, for what? And he's like, oh, to go back near my house. And I was like, okay. But my dumbass didn't question anything, right? And then he hits me up the next day, and he's like, hey, can you pick me up by the Walmart? And I was like, I thought you went home. And he's like, this is my home. And I was like, what the fuck? Like, what do you mean this is your home? Like, where the fuck is it at? You know, I was tripping. And he was like, yeah. He's like, I've been living out here for a while. Told me his story. And I was like, what am I getting myself into? But, you know, don't you know that, like, he was the love of my life, and he was going to go places? So I was like, well, all right, you know. So my parents ended up leaving for a week to go on vacation. Tell me why I move in this homeless guy. Not move in, but I let him stay with me for a full fucking week. Not knowing this guy. He was homeless. And he was talking about all these like goals and aspirations that he had. And he was like, yeah, I'm going to open up a sober living. Like, I really want to help homeless people and, you know, whatever. And I was like, dang, like, we're going to get married. We're going to be together forever. And he wants to do all these great things, you know. So I started to bring him around the meetings and stuff. And I remember Mary Helen was the only one that was like, you need to be careful with relationships in the beginning, right? Because you never know. And I was like, whatever. I'll take my chances. So I had worked on getting my kids back. But in hindsight, I'm grateful because he helped me through a really dark time. Like, he was a good distraction, you know? I think that had he not been there, I probably would have been a lot worse off, like, not having my kids. So he was a distraction in my life that I probably needed at the time. So I was working on getting my kids back, and I completed everything. I was going to meetings. I was talking to, you know, my sponsor, Mary Helen, and I was doing everything right, you know, as far as the courts say. So I finally got a chance to get my kids back. We went to mediation, and the judge, you know, looked everything over. She's like, well, you really don't have a reason. She told my ex-husband, you really don't have a reason to have a restraining order on her. Like, you don't feel like your life is threatened. Your kids' lives are not threatened. You know, she's been a good mother. She's taken care of them. She's like, so you can have them on the weekends. And I was like, well, wait, like, I need them on a weekend, you know, whatever. We went back and forth, and after a little bit of time of like working on myself in meetings and stuff, they saw how good I was doing. They were like, well, she's not incapable of taking care of her kids. So I did get them back, and I have them most of the time now, you know. They go with their dad the last 3 weekends of the month. But that was an amazing feeling in itself. So that for me, like, propelled me to want to get deeper into this program, you know. So I kept taking people's advice, except for one, which is the relationship one, right? Because I think we all struggle with that.
Yeah.
So there was this other guy.
You know what my sponsor used to tell me though?
What?
Like, cause first of all, he never told me not to be in a relationship. He always told me like at like 4 or 5 months, he's like, Adam, if you never get into a relationship, how are you ever gonna know how to be in one? You know what I'm saying?
Ooh.
And so I think like it becomes, a relationship becomes bad when it becomes too much of a distraction that you start to put. Like, I was talking to someone the other day and I was like, look at, like, I'm willing to give up unhealthy, you know what I'm saying, situations for somebody, right? I'm not willing to give up healthy. Like, I'm not willing to stop sponsoring. I'm not willing to stop going to meetings. I'm not willing to stop that
Right.
for a relationship. I'll stop, like, because I gamble, right? I do
Yeah.
some other unhealthy behaviors, right? Like, I'm willing to give up those unhealthy behaviors, you know what I'm saying? Like, maybe nicotine one day, definitely not caffeine
One day.
ever, right? One day, not today, but one
Baby
day.
steps.
You know, but like, I think when it becomes a problem is when that person, right, becomes everything to us.
Right,
And then
right.
now we're like, well, I can't hang out with the people I used to hang out with
Mm-hmm.
because of the relationship I'm in, or I can't go to an outside meeting, right, that I would normally do with my boys because I'm in this relationship. You know what I'm saying? And that's where it gets tricky. My sponsor always told me, he said, when you get into a relationship, you better work your program twice as hard. And it's always relevant because intimate relationships bring out the worst in people. Like, I don't care if Mike gets mad at me. I don't care if he disappoints me. You know what I'm saying? If I'm like, not that way, you know, like if Mike says, hey, I'm gonna be there tonight, right? And then he's like, he calls me and he's like, hey, bro, like, I can't make it. Okay, cool. Well, I'm still going, right? It's not that big of a deal, right? But if I'm in a relationship with like a super intimate relationship, and they're like, oh, I can't make it. I'm like, what the fuck? I always make you sacrifice to be with you and blah, 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 right? And that's what creates a problem,
Yep.
And you're
right?
like, what did I do? It's gotta be my fault.
Yeah, it has to be my fault. She must not love me. She must, you know what I'm saying?
Yep.
And so that's when it becomes tricky. And so it is important to stay. I think there's somebody who shares, right? They say we need to be focused on relationships, relationship with God, relationship with our sponsor, relationship with ourselves, right? But I think like getting into relationships, as long as you don't pick up and you don't get loaded, like and it has to be like awareness too. Mm-hmm. You have to know yourself, right? If you're not ready for a relationship, then you need to stay out of one, right? But for me, this is just me personally. I feel like everything I did in early recovery, some healthy, some very unhealthy. I think it's the only reason why I'm still clean today, right? Because if someone would have been like, don't get laid in early recovery, like, so you take away drugs, you take away alcohol, like now you want me to like not have fun? You know what I'm saying? Like for real, bro. Like
You're against me.
yeah, you're against me. Like I don't think I would have been able to stay sane. Like I need it, even to this day, like I still need some unhealthy behaviors like nicotine and caffeine. Like if I go to a convention, I want to get geeked up on caffeine, bro. I just do. You know what I'm saying? Like I need, this is just me, right? If I go on a cruise, if I'm going out to the Palm Desert, like I want to do a little bit of gambling. Like I do everything so responsible that sometimes I need to fuck off a little bit, you know? And that's just the way it keeps me like tethered.
Is it or is it justification?
It might be a justification. Well, maybe one day we'll get there, right?
You're like, I can afford it though.
Yeah. I can afford a few $100s, you know? And so I only say that to say this, right? Like, my sponsor never tethered me down. He never told me like I can't be in relationships. He always told me be careful. He always told me like that dude has fucking walked me through so many fucking relationships. It's not even funny.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And I'm really grateful because every relationship that he's walked me through, like I've learned more and we dug deeper into it, right? Because I became a decent father, a hard worker. I became all those things, but like being in a romantic relationship is very difficult to me because of how intimate it is, right? Because of how close it is, right? People, when you're in a significant other relationship, right? Like they get to see sides of you that the rest of the world don't get to see, right? And that's fucking scary for me, right? That's intimidating for me. That's like I have to be like this or I have to be like that because I don't know. It's really weird. So
Yeah. No, I totally agree. And that's where I was going with this. So like I had a little bit of time, right? And my sponsor was like, you need to be careful. You know, she never told me I couldn't be in it. I don't think I started hearing that until like I was well into the program. Like, you know, they recommend that you don't be in relationships your first year. So, so I had met this other person in recovery and so originally, right, I had my eyes on, you know, this white boy that I know now. And and I thought he was really cute. I had never been with a white boy, so I was like, that wasn't my get down. But when I saw him, I was like, oh, he's like a down ass white boy, you know? So let me see what's up with him. He tried to play the cool cat way too much. So I was like, okay, where do you live? And he'd give me like one word answers. And I was like, man, fuck this fool. Like, I'm on to the next, you know, because he didn't give me the time of day. So I was like, this guy's trying way too hard. So that night there was this guy who was like, hey, you want to go out for coffee? And I was like, all right, whatever. So we go out to coffee and I end up in this full blown relationship with him a week later. And he's like, you want to come with me to Vegas with my family on New Year's Eve? Started planning all these trips for us and all these things, right? And I was like, he loves me. I'm going to marry this guy again, right? I was like, oh, he's rescuing me, right? He treated me very well in the beginning, though. Like, I didn't have a job then. I had just gotten my kids back. You know, there was something that I felt so warm about the way that he was around my kids, because I didn't bring my kids around like, oh, I'm going to be with this person. It was more like in a group setting, like, oh, this is my friend, you know? And he was so good with kids that it warmed my heart. And I was like, oh, he's a really good person, you know? He was giving me $100 bills, like, here, go take care of yourself, whatever you need for the kids. I'm going to put my card on your phone in case you need to buy something. And I was like, oh, fucking hell yeah, I scored, you know? Like, that was my only thing. So I started noticing again, like, little things, right? And the more I started to work on myself in the program, the more I was like, oh, I need to really, like, acknowledge the shit that I'm seeing, like, in these people, right? Like, I need to be aware of for certain things. So I started to see little signs, and he picked me up one day, and he was like, oh, I got you a Christmas gift. And I was like, oh, thank you. Like, it was a really nice gift. And so it was right before we went to Vegas. So when we went to Vegas with his family, he started drinking in front of me. And I was like, I thought we weren't supposed to do that, you know? Like, I thought everything is drugs, like, including alcohol. And he was like, yeah, well, I'm going to do it. Like, he snapped at me, and I was like, oh, fuck, like, do whatever you want. Like, you know, you're giving me money. I don't give a fuck. Like, you know, go ahead. So I didn't know how bad it really was, though. And I didn't know there was only one person that warned me about him. And that person, you know, was a good friend of mine. And he told me, be careful, because he's a chronic relapser. And I was like, what? He just got 90 days. He has more time than me. Like, what do you mean? You know? So I was like, nah, I would see all these chips, right? I didn't know that he had been in and out of the program for so long and that he just couldn't get it, you know? But the more that I started to learn about him, the more I felt bad for him. Like, I was like, maybe he just needs to be fixed. I'm going to be the one to fix him, you know? Because we all go in there thinking that we can fix everybody. So, man, when we got back from Vegas, I was like, just don't do that shit around my kids. Like, you need to stop that. You know, I was trying to help him. And I think it was his birthday. And I went to his place, and I had brought the kids, because he always wanted to be around the kids. And that always was, I was like, oh, okay. And as soon as I got there, I was like, have you been drinking, bro? And he's like, no, I was livid. I'm like, you don't do that shit around my kids. Like, I was like, I'm fucking done with you. Like, this is where I crossed the line. And I wanted to leave, and he slammed my door so hard that I thought the window was going to break. And I was like, fuck. So a week later, he's like, let me just talk to you. And I was like, whatever. So I get in the car, and then I find a bottle. And I was like, bro, you're drinking again? Like, what at that point, I had made up my mind. Like, I'm done. Like, I'm not going to be dealing with this shit. You know, I just got my kids. I can't afford to be dealing with this bullshit. So I was like, I'm done with you. So he's like, yeah, you're done? And we're on the freeway. And he starts swerving his car, like, in and out of lanes, right? I was like, I'm gonna fucking die tonight. Like, I was scared out of my mind. And he pulls over, and he starts, like, yanking on me because I'm trying to get out. He's, like, yanking on my arm so hard that he bruises my arm. And I was like, just leave me. Like, I just want to be left alone. And I ended up having to call one of my friends to come and pick me up, because he ended up, like, getting so drunk that he drove off and ended up in the back of a police car in the end, right? So I had to have a friend come pick me up and take me home. And after that, I was like, I had sworn off a relationship. I was like, I'm done trying to feel validated. I am done trying to find love elsewhere. Like, I started to kind of love myself and started to have respect for myself, right? I was like, I need to focus on my kids. Like, fuck all of this. Like, I'm just gonna, I started hanging around with my sponsor a lot more. You know, I started going to her house, like, started to really develop a really close friendship with her. The more I got to know her, the more that she was healing me in a way that I didn't even know I needed healing. You know, like she was like a mom to me, you know, like she loved me for me. And that was the first time I had ever experienced a love like that. You know, she was so healing to me. Like she knew exactly what to say when I needed to hear it. She knew exactly how I felt when I would express myself. For the first time ever in my life, like I was like, damn, this is the mom that I wish I had growing up. You know, had I had a mom like this, my life would be so different, you know? So I started hanging around with her and, you know, other people that she was associated with. And I started to fucking love everybody that she hung around with. Like I started to get more involved and I was like, I want to do this and I want to do that. I started going to conventions, you know, it was, a lot of people were like, what do you do if you guys like don't drink or smoke or whatever? I'm like, you'd be fucking surprised. Like, you know, shit's popping everywhere because there's always something to do, you know? So it was exciting for me to like be able to do all these things like without, you know, having to feel like I need to go get some type of drug or get some kind of head change, you know? It was awesome. And then for me, it was a happy medium because I would have my kids throughout the week, and yes, I would have them most of the time, but then I got that little break the last 3 weekends, right? So I was able to like heal myself and work on me and do things that I wanted to do and live my life the way that I never did growing up, because I went from feeling unlovable to losing my virginity to dealing with all the BS of my ex-husband or my first love and then my ex-husband. And then, you know, I never got to experience what I liked, what I wanted in life, you know? So this was the first time that I was like, damn, this is like nice. Like I'm just getting me time, right? So once I started to get closer to Mary Helen, I started to love myself and I was working on myself and I was like, dang, I really like the person. Like I feel like I fit in here and these people fucking like me, like for me, right? I don't have an altered state of mind and like people fuck with me, you know? And I started to feel like, well, if you like me, great. If you don't, well, that's cool too. You know, I don't have to talk to you. You don't have to talk to me. So when I got there to that state of mind, right? When I was like, I'm so comfortable with who I am today, the friends that I have, the people that I get to be around, is when this white boy that I talk about was started to come around a little bit, right? And started to try to talk to me or whatever. So I ended up seeing him at a dance and I was like, that boy, I'm gonna get that boy's number tonight, right? And here goes my mind again. And I was like, but I'm gonna take my time with it. Like there was no rush. I wasn't like, oh, I'm gonna be with this guy, you know, whatever. He's the one that I'm gonna try to fit. It was just like, bro, he's cute. Like if it happens, it happens, you know? But I was already so comfortable within myself that I was like, whatever, you know, we got to dancing. I thought he was funny. He left and I didn't think anything of it, you know? Like I didn't feel pressured to have to get his information, nothing, you know? Everything happened really organically. And when he saw me dancing, he says that he was laughing with me, but I wasn't laughing. So I think he was laughing at me at the way that I was dancing. But he was talking about a convention that was coming up. And I was like, yeah, let's do it. You know, and I was like, are you going to stay out there? Because it wasn't even that far. It was like in Paramount. And I was like, are you going to stay there at the hotel? He's like, yeah, I'm down. And I was like, bet, but I'm getting the bed. So he's like, I'm getting a bed. I was like, don't try anything funny. So we had been going back and forth flirting, right? And he was like, yeah, let me give you my number. And I was like, okay. So that day is when we had started talking, right? And he, again, was really cool. He was... He was really cool. Like, again, he was just giving me like one word answers. Like, oh, okay. Like, no matter how much I tried to flirt with him, I was like, this fool just don't get it. Like, he's not picking up on my vibes, you know? Like, maybe he does just want to be friends, and I'm cool with that, you know? I was like, all right, we're going to be friends, whatever. And then he was like, hey, sometimes I'm at work, so let me give you the number to my other cell phone. And I was like, oh, fuck. I knew, like, this bitch got 2 phones. Like, something's going on, right? And I was like, man, I knew there had to be something wrong with him. And I was like, why do you have 2 phones? And he was like, oh, one's my personal phone, one's my work phone. And I was like, bullshit. Like, you know, people that have 2 phones are because they're fucking lying. And I was like, whatever. So I didn't think anything of it. We date for, you know, a little bit. And then he was so consistent in the way that he was, like, the way he talked to me, the way that he presented himself. I didn't see that he had been with any women in the program. So he was kind of to himself, and he was really funny. And I was like, maybe, you know, just maybe, like, this could work out. But I didn't put pressure on it. I didn't think I didn't think too far ahead. I was just kind of living in the moment, you know? And things kind of took off from there. And then bam, 4 months later, I'm proposing to him, you know, because I'm like, this guy's so great. I'm gonna lock this shit down. But he was so good to me that I was like, man, like this is the shit people dream about, you know? Like I didn't even know a love like this fucking existed. For the first time, anytime I had any kind of relationship with any man throughout my entire life, I always felt like, oh man, like if I'm dating this guy, like I wish this guy had what this guy had. I wish my ex-husband could have been more like this. Like multiple guys, right? For the first time ever in my life, I found a man that had all these qualities in one person. So for the first time ever, I felt like I didn't feel the need to have to look outside or to explore other things. Like I was like, okay, I'm gonna really try this time, you know, and see where it goes. But I'm not gonna put too much pressure because obviously I was still broken, you know. So he was sticking around, you know, he had met the kids and, you know, the kids liked him. He was, again, very respectful, friendly, whatever. But anytime, and this wasn't so much a red flag, anytime it would be like, he didn't agree with what I was saying, like, oh, we should go here. Like, oh, we need to make a left. No, I think we need to make a right. And I was like, okay, wait, hold up. Like, we're done. Because you're disagreeing with me, right? Like my toxic ass was like, no, you're not agreeing. Let me push you away before you actually leave, you know, because my walls were still very guarded. So I did everything I could to try to push it away because I was like, he's too nice. Like the ball's bound to drop sooner or later, right? So, like this isn't real. But he stuck around, man. Like he proved to me, like I'm not going anywhere. Like if you're gonna leave, I'm gonna follow you. Like I'm not going anywhere. And for the first time ever in a relationship, like I felt like, you know, oh, this can actually work. Like this is actually gonna be healthy, you know. And I remember talking to Mary Helen about it. She was like, I like him. And I was like, yeah. I'm like, should I go for it? And she's like, well, you won't know until you go for it. And I remember we went to Huntington Beach, right? When I was younger, so when I was with my ex-husband and we were like fresh out of high school, I saw this video of, it was an older couple that had been together like 50 years. And they were like, what's the secret to having such a great relationship? And the lady was like, oh, it's the little things that he does, you know, whatever. And he was like, yeah, like I always put the toilet seat down for her, you know, when I leave the restroom or whatever. And I was like, I want somebody to put the toilet seat down for me, you know, like I want that kind of love. I want to experience that. So he and I had taken a trip by the beach, and he was always very like, go with the flow, you know, what do you want to do? Oh, whatever. What do you want to do? Oh, okay, let's just go have fun, you know? So that night he comes out of the bathroom and he's like, hey babe, did you ever notice that I always put the toilet seat down for you when I walk out? And I was like, oh my God, I found the love of my life, you know? Like that was it for me. And I remember calling Mary Helen that night and I was like bawling because I was like, I've always wanted this and I found it, but I feel like it's too good to be true. And she's like, Mija, even if it doesn't happen, enjoy the moment right now. Like look at him and enjoy the moment, and you need to live in your present because you are worthy of everything happening to you right now. And even if it doesn't work out, you have these memories that you get to hold on to, right? And I was like, damn, like she's right. So after that, I tried to live in every moment, and it wasn't easy because I still, you know, coming up here today, like passing San Bernardino, I was like, fuck, all these feelings started to flood my mind of like, damn, I was a piece of shit mom. I wasn't worthy of my kids. Like what, I was just a shitty person. Like, you know, I don't feel worthy enough to have these beautiful, wonderful kids that, you know, are so amazing. But sometimes it does make me feel like grateful, right? Because of what I've done and the work that I've done on myself, and Mary Helen, most importantly, because of everything that she's taught me and the way she loves people has taught me to be such a better mother, right? So like my daughter is in kinder right now, and I didn't have that love growing up. So I try to push my daughter to be the best version she can. And she's so fucking confident at 6 years old, you know, like I lived through her, and it's amazing to see that. And she would always tell me like, I love hearing the sound of you and the kids laughing. And I'm like, I love that I get to do that today, you know, because I didn't have that growing up. I'm so involved in both of my kids' lives, and they love to be with mom, and I take them around everybody. And, you know, they were like, why do we have so many aunts and uncles? And I'm like, because these are going to be your family for the rest of your lives. But it's amazing to see like the love and gratitude there is. Like, I'm so fucking grateful, man. I'm grateful for the people that I've met, you know, throughout this whole experience. unfortunately, you know, Mary Helen did get sick. And she left us not too long ago. And her services, you know, I had talked to her about it, and I was like, damn, Mom, this is the first time I'm ever going to go through something like this, because I would call her Mom. This is the first time I'm ever going to go through something like this clean. Like, how am I going to deal with life? Like, how am I going to deal with you not being here when you fixed me, you know? She was like, I didn't fix you. You fixed yourself. And I was like, fuck, man. So, and I would tell her, like, if it wasn't for you or my kids, like, I wouldn't be where I'm at. Like, she was like, no, you did that. So everything that I've taught you, you teach to others. You know, help other people. And I was like, okay. So the same love that she gave me, I try to really channel that into new people that I meet. You know, like I'm very loving with people. Like I say hi to everybody. I go out of my way to make people feel special, because that's what everybody fucking did for me. You know, like, people loved on me, and until I learned to love myself, like, really. You know, and I took on all these fucking commitments, and, you know, sometimes I railroad my fiance into taking a commitment, and I was like, well, I'm gonna do this one. So, you know what? I signed us up for this, so we're gonna do it. And he's like, dang, sometimes I just wanna relax. I'm like, that's not an option. But when we first got together, you know, that was something that was really important to me, because I was so submerged in this program that I was glad to be able to see that he was just as involved, you know? Like, it was really nice to see that we shared the same passion, and that we still get to do that, because that's like a hobby that we have. You know, it's not just like a way of life. It's a hobby, that it's a life experience that we get to go through together. You know, and that's a really nice thing to have. So my sponsors, so right before my sponsor passed, I had told her, Mom, I'm up. And she was like, I know, I'm sorry. And I'm like, why are you apologizing when you were in pain? You know, like, yeah, I'm suffering, but why are you apologizing? Again, the love that she had was for people, it wasn't for herself, you know? So she was like, I'm just sorry that you have to go through this. And I was like, you know what? I'm at peace, Mom. Like, I had to make peace with it to tell her that she could rest. You know, I was like, I'm at peace. I'll be fine. Like, as long as you come back and haunt me, I'll be fine. She was like, oh, I will haunt you. And I was like, okay, so I'll be okay. And so she went to rest. And you know, like you said, in relationships, sometimes the worst of you comes out, right? So I was dealing with that, and I just kind of got in my feelings, right? Like, everything started to bug me. And even the way that, you know, Nate was breathing was bugging me. Like, I was like, dang, stop chewing, stop breathing, stop talking, you know? Like, I was just in my feelings, and I didn't know how to get past it. So one day, I'm sitting outside, and we had a disagreement, right? And I was trying to talk to her, and I was like, damn, Mom, like, just come through. What do I do? What do I do? And the brightest blue bird came and sat on his car. And I was like, fuck, I think that's her. So that night I had a dream about her, and she's talking to me, right? And again, she's talking to me in my dream, which is something she'd tell me if she was here. She was like, oh, honey, you need to stop with your bullshit. And I was like, fuck, maybe I do need to stop with my bullshit, you know? Like, maybe it is just me. So I took that and I ran, and I was like, at least she's still coming to me, you know? And her services were this past weekend. And when I tell you that I wasn't prepared to experience that kind of pain, I was not fucking ready. Like, it was the first time ever, I think, in my recovery that I ever felt like I just want to be fucking numb. Like, I don't want to feel this. This hurts way too much, you know? But I was like, what kind of slap in the fucking face would that be to my sponsor if I regress in any way in my recovery, you know? So I pushed through it, and obviously I have people that love her and that remind me of her, and I wanna help that legacy out, man. Like, you know, she's like, carry the torch, and that's what I plan to do with my life and everything that I've been taught and everybody that I'm surrounded by, you know. I don't think that because I've never smoked weed, you know, sometimes people are like, well, what are you even doing here? You don't have to smoke weed. You don't have to start with anything. Anything can be an addiction. Sex can be an addiction, you know. Anything that makes you feel, that alters your state of mind, I believe can make you become an addict. But once I really learned that and submerged myself in like these people and, you know, the program or whatever, I really got to see that there's another side of life that you can really experience, like being happy and clean, right? Which is something that I didn't think that was even possible for me. But yeah, I just because I was a good kid doesn't mean that you can't get addicted, man. Because
I think people have like a big misunderstanding of what the disease of addiction is, and the characteristics and the qualifications and and all that stuff. And I think that people who are able to hold it together have a harder time getting clean and staying clean than people who destroy their whole fucking life with a bag, right? Because there's still like signs of manageability. While I still was there with my kids, while I was never homeless, while I never been to prison, while I never did this or I never did that, I never put a needle in my arm or a pipe in my mouth or or anything up my nose. So like this must mean that I'm not what they characterized as an addict.
Right.
But the truth is, right, anything that I use that makes my life unmanageable, right, that I'm powerless over, when I wake up and I say, hey, like I'm not going to use today and I still fucking use, right, that's a form of powerlessness, right? And then it causes all, and another thing too, people think unmanageability, homeless, jobless, carless, kidless, right? But what about like emptiness? What about loneliness? You know what I'm saying? What about suicidalness, right? Like, so when we think about unmanageability, we always focus on the outside. But what about the inside unmanageability?
Right.
Am I able to think for myself? Am I able to feel good feelings? Am I able to like manage my feelings and my thoughts at once, right? And so all that stuff becomes care. And people, because like so I work in a facility, right? It's not in recovery, it's in treatment, right? Treatment and recovery are completely different, right? But we get guys that are young, right? And they're like, oh, well, they just smoked a bunch of weed and like their mom wants them in treatment, right? And then you'll hear other clients like, bro, you guys have no idea that no matter what you use, how much you use, who you're using with, it becomes a fucking problem. And if your parents are saying, hey, like you're smoking too much weed and like nothing's happening in your fucking life, that's a fucking problem, bro.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? You need to be in treatment, because if not, that problem's going to create more problems, and now you're just fucking in a
Snowball
sea
effect.
full of fucking problems, bro. You know what I'm saying? So like there doesn't have to be the first time I went to treatment, I never put a needle in my arm, right? And I was like, well, I never put a needle in my arm. I never been to prison. So like I must not qualify to fucking be here.
Right. And that's what I thought. I was like, I wasn't pushing a cart, down the bridge, or I've never even smoked like crack or whatever. Like I didn't even know what that stuff was, Nathan took me we went on the Gold Line or whatever it was. That was the first time I had ever seen anybody like smoke dope. And I was like, oh shit. Like I couldn't even look away, And he was like, stop staring. I'm like, I fucking can't. Like I've never seen this shit in my life, Like I didn't grow up with that shit, so I can't. My eyes were fucking glued onto what they were doing. And then we got to the bottom and it was like the fucking movies. Like it was like zombies were coming out of the woodworks. I was like, fuck, that's what it does? Like I was mind blown, But just because I didn't grow up like that or do any of that doesn't mean that I don't belong,
No,
like
absolutely,
for sure. And I think a lot of people get misconstrued and they're like, oh no, that's not me. I have sponsees now that I take very seriously, because sponsorship to me is not something that I take lightly.
Right.
So with I have a sponsee and all she's ever done is like drink and smoke weed, and I was like, girl, you picked the perfect sponsor, because like that my get down was only this. I didn't necessarily have to do any of these other things for me to belong, So I try to definitely channel that into my sponsees and to let people know, like any of the newcomers or anybody that comes in, like I'm like, dude, you belong here. Like I try to make I go out of my way to like make people feel welcome, like you belong here. You're in the right place. Sometimes I find myself like, even with my normie friends, I find myself like inviting them to like NA functions and stuff, and they're like, what is that? And I'm like, just come, because everybody can benefit from it, Like that's what I think personally, because it's an amazing thing to meet people here and to grow these lifelong friendships.
Yeah.
I think.
One more story. I remember we were at a meeting. You might have been there, and we were at a meeting, and this girl who was coming, right? And she was identifying as an addict. And at one of the meetings, she said, she shared, she raised her hand to share, and she shared, and she says, I'm not even an addict. I never done drugs. Like, I just came here, and I felt so a part of it, and you guys loved me, and this and that. And we're like, fucking welcome. You know what I'm saying? Keep fucking coming back. You know what I'm saying? Like, we don't give a fuck. You know what I'm saying? Like, just keep fucking coming.
I haven't seen her in a while.
I haven't seen her in a while either. I
And
think
she was probably like, I don't belong here.
And I think feelings.
She would share, dude.
Yeah?
She would share. Yeah. She would just check in for like what she's going through.
Fucking
And then-
gangster. I wish I would have met her. Fuck.
And then she said that, and then it was like, whoa, okay. Yeah.
But
still
sometimes
belong?
I mean, I never ever in my life had a sense of belonging until I came in.
Yep.
And this is the first time I didn't feel like a black sheep or like, oh, I'm going to get judged or, whatever. Like, my life is all out there for everybody to know now.
Mm-hmm.
And it's amazing how much I still feel so loved,
Yeah.
by people genuinely. And it's pretty awesome.
It is. Mm-hmm. All right. Well, thank you for coming on. We really appreciate it,
Thank
Jessica.
you. Anytime.
Yeah, you have a unique story that's not like everyone else's. And like you said, like just because you didn't do those things, or the members that come in that haven't smoked crack, like you still can. Mm-hmm. Keep doing what you were doing, and you can get there.
Right.
But you don't have to.
Right.
We can get this taken care of now, and you don't
Yeah.
have to smoke crack. But
Yeah.
so thank you, Jessica, for coming on.
Thank you.
Please make sure you guys share Jessica's story with anybody who you feel will need to hear this. Make sure you follow us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and we're also on YouTube. You can follow us on IG, which is the Message is Hope Podcast _ between each word, and we'll make sure to give you guys a follow back.
And if you would like to be on the podcast or know somebody that you would like to hear on the podcast, have them reach out to us. You reach out to us. You can also email at themessagesHopePodcast@gmail.com. And we'll see you next week.
Looking at the skylight, thinking of my life like looking for the right state of mind to get my time right. I just hope my time's right. Lost up in the limelight, but you'll never know unless you walked up in my shoes.
As someone who struggled with addiction in the past, how does it feel to be able to give hope to others who are still struggling now?
It's such an honor to be able to hear other people's experiences of life, to see how when faced with the very thing that was sent to destroy you, kill you, and take you out forever didn't, but rather you have been given a second chance to give hope and be a light for those who are still in the dark. So don't be afraid to share your message to the world. You never know whose life you might be saving.